Hello, everybody. This is Sue Maya and another episode of Quantum Theology. Today we're going to talk about energy and physics as it relates to precognition. Okay, a deep subject. Get ready. We're going to talk about how is it possible for energy to help you with your path forward and to receive information coming from the future. Yes, interesting, isn't it? That physics is catching up and relating to what the mystics have been saying all along. Consider the possibility that there really is some physics behind mysticism, that there is really some proof that will demonstrate what the mystics were saying all along, that you can, through your consciousness, receive information from the universe, that you can understand and hear and see and relive past lives, future lives, travel in time and space, because the science is telling us so. Let me tell you a little bit more about that, and I'm going to quote from Michio Kaku's Physics of the Impossible, his book on a scientific exploration into the world of phasers, force fields, teleportation, and time travel. I'm not making this up. This is an experienced, educated, and very he's a very well-versed professor of physics. So here's something about what he says on precognition. I'm going to be reading about 3 or 4 paragraphs of it. When we discuss Maxwell's theory, that's James Clerk Maxwell, the scenario becomes much more complicated. When we solve Maxwell's equations for light, we find not one but 2 solutions. A retarded wave, which represents the standard motion of light from one point to another, but also an advanced wave, where the light beam goes backward in time. This advanced solution comes from the future and arrives in the past. For 100 years, when engineers have encountered this advanced solution that goes backward in time, they have simply dismissed it as a mathematical curiosity. Since the retarded waves so accurately predicted the behavior of radio, microwaves, TV, radar, and X-rays, they simply threw the advanced solution out the window. The retarded waves were so spectacularly beautiful and successful that engineers simply ignored the ugly twin. Why tamper with success? But for physicists, the advanced wave has been a nagging problem for the past century. Since Maxwell's equations are among the pillars of the modern age, any solution of these equations has to be taken very seriously, even if it entails accepting waves from the future. It seemed that it was impossible to totally ignore the advanced waves from the future. Why would nature, at its most fundamental level, give us such a bizarre solution? Was this a cruel joke, or was this a more profound meaning? Mystics began to take an interest in these advanced waves, speculating that they would appear as messages from the future. Perhaps if we could somehow harness these waves, we might be able to send messages back to the past and hence alert previous generations of events to come. I'm going to skip a little bit here and go to. These advanced waves were a mystery until they were studied by Richard Feynman, who was intrigued by the idea of going backward in time. After working on the Manhattan Project, which built the first atomic bomb, Feynman left Los Alamos and went to Princeton University to work under John Wheeler, analyzing Paul Dirac's original work on the electron. Feynman found something very strange. If he simply reversed the direction of time on Dirac's equation, the equation remained the same if he also reversed the electron charge. In other words, an electron going backward in time is the same as an anti-electron going forward in time. So energy changing from positive to negative can change its direction in time. So normally, a mature physicist might dismiss this interpretation, calling it just a trick, a mathematical sleight of hand with no meaning. Going backward in time did not seem to make any sense, yet Dirac's equations were clear on this point. In other words, Feynman had found the reason that nature had allowed these backwards in time solutions. They represented the motion of antimatter. If he had been an older physicist, Feynman might have thrown the solution out the window, but being a lowly graduate student, he decided to pursue it, his curiosity further. As he continued to delve in this conundrum of the young Feynman noticed something even stranger. Normally, if an electron and an anti-electron collide, they annihilate one another and create a gamma ray. He drew this on a piece of paper, two objects bumping into each other, turning into a burst of energy. But then, if you reverse the charge of the anti-electron, it became an ordinary electron going backward in time. You could then rewrite the same diagram with the arrow of time reversed. It now appeared as if the electron went forward in time, then suddenly decided to reverse direction. The electron did a U-turn in time and was now going backward in time, releasing a burst of energy in the process. In other words, it is the same electron. The electron-anti-electron annihilation process was just the same electron deciding to go backward in time. Okay, that's a lot of words, right? Well, let's consider. All right. Electrons can be both regular electrons and anti-electrons. They can move forward and backward in time. That means if you're sitting in meditation and you think about your past, you can also think about your future. And your thoughts have energy. And so that energy of thought can go in any direction. So why shouldn't electrons and anti-electrons of matter do the same? Since we are made of matter and our thoughts are made of energy, and matter is made of energy, why shouldn't the process go either way? It's just that we're used to going forward in time in a linear direction, but that's just a comfortable model for us to live in. It's just convenient to say we can go from A to B to D to F and so on, and that's one linear equation. But F, okay, that point in the future, may also have its energy already waiting for us to meet up with it. In other words, it can turn around and face us and give us its information. This is how precognition might be working. Take a minute and think about it some more. When you're in a dream, when you're sleeping and in a dream, where do you go? Do you go into the past, or do you go into the future, or do you go into the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 11th dimension? Where do you go? And how come all the objects in the dream can be moved around? And how come some pieces of that could be from the past or the future of your present life? How can all of that be connected? This is how it can be connected. In the quantum field of energy, where energies can shift time, space, and dimension, you can navigate by understanding that the symbolisms can come from just about anywhere. And then as you get to know those symbols and the vocabulary of your consciousness, you might be tapping into precognition. Here's another thought. I was laying in bed late last night going, how do we know that karma is in place? Karma is also another word for cause and effect. And cause and effect and the cycles of everything, okay, cycles of electrons and protons and planets in orbits and the rise and fall of waves. But all of those things can help you understand that what you're doing now can maybe predict where you're going to be in your next life or this afterlife. So it occurred to me that some people who are experiencing a truly abundant and maybe even a greedy life now may have to experience a lack of poverty, of famine, of need, of health issues in the next phase. Maybe that would be called purgatory. Maybe it would be called hell. I mean, there are other dimensions. And what if your sacrifices in this life, the ones where you gave up property and fame and you gave up position, jobs, glory, maybe you've experienced a lot of hardship in this life. That may predict the next wave. That may tell you that the next wave in your life could be one of great heights in heaven. Because waves of energy, waves of light, waves and cycles of the entire natural world are consistent with this idea. If you can imagine that the rising and falling of sine and cosine waves in perfect symmetry to their own frequency, like colors, music, that means that if you're in a low point in your life now, you will turn around and rise above. That's a bit of hope for you. In a way, you could say, if I give this up, then I will be rewarded later. Okay, that's what it says in the Bible. But I'm looking at the science of it right now. How can we back up what Jesus said with science? How can we back up what the Dalai Lama says? Because we were created by God, and He created all the sciences, all the arts, all the motions, all the energies, all of it. So there's no contradiction. There can't be. God's unified world, His creation, has to operate on principles that He put in motion way, way, way before we could even open our eyes and ears to it. So I'm suggesting now that you consider how all of these things can be unified and how you can find grace and hope in it. Thank you so much for listening. We'll open up for discussion.